Welcome back to Dagryffyn Hobby. My name's Dave. If you're new here, let me introduce you to my birds. They're wild birds that nest in my window frame every year. So if you hear those chirping through videos, that's why. One of the first things I did scenery-wise was cut a river through the table. So I realized that I didn't want to base everything else off of the placement of that river, so I filled it in. When I made the river, both loops were on the same level. When I switched over to the Menards track, I put the inner loop up 1.5 inches, and that covered up most of the river. So I was left with, do I cut the river back out of that level, or do I just wipe it out, erase it, and start over? So I figured, since I'm not exactly sure where the scenery is going to, or I'm not sure how the scenery is going to develop, I figured it was best to remove the river, and that way that gives me the flexibility to put it wherever it needs to be when I get to that point. So take a look at the video, see how I did it. I hope you find it informative, helpful, interesting, or at least mildly entertaining.
Oh, that's a good noise. So that took me about 5-10 minutes to cut everything out. And it just lifts out. And then I can just put a new piece in here and then shape it. Shouldn't be able to tell when I'm done. And it's sinking down in that one corner because I don't have it properly supported. This side it sits on the wood. So since I just make this up as I go along, put some screws in from the bottom. Yeah, it does the job. Is it ideal? No. Does it work? Yes. It doesn't need to be perfect because it's all going to be landscaped over anyway. I lined it up and I scored a line. Okay, I threw a little bit of glue under here and just put 3 screws right through the middle to hold it to the other piece that was underneath it. And you won't see the screws, they'll be under the roadbed. So that should work just fine. I'm going to take my hot wire cutter here and just go across the front in line with the front of the table. I want to make sure I take up as much of the gap as possible in between these pieces. So I've cut it just a little bit long and I'll force it in there and it should be good. So there's some adhesive on there. I'll bend the board a little bit, squeeze it in there, make sure that the top edge of the front piece is above top edge of the table. I could be patient and let it dry before I do anything else, or I could throw some nails in through there just to hold it in place while I finish working on it. So I'll probably do that because who's got time to wait? I put 1 screw through the middle, a couple of small nails around the side just to keep it in place. Obviously it's too long, but I found it easier to trim it once it's in place. Very easy. The hot wire foam cutter again and run it along the bottom edge of the table frame. Doesn't have to be perfect, it's all going to be shaped like the rest of the edging, so if it's A little low or a little high, I just worked it into the contour. Okay, so I'm just going to use some of the Woodland Scenics trackbed. I cut the road bed back about a ½ inch on each side, so I didn't want the seam to be right on top of the seam of the foam. I cut it a little bit longer than I needed it. Put down a little bit of the caulk. Take my spackle knife and spread it out. I'm going to smush it together a little bit so that it doesn't separate and leave me with a gap. And then try to lay it down straight. So you have a piece. Running two pieces of the track bed together, I don't just cut one line, I overlap them and then cut through both layers. That way, if I don't cut it exactly straight, it still matches up. But there you go, a nice seam.
So that's how it's done. The Knoname River is now the Knomore River. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing. I appreciate all the support. Please like, comment, and I'll see you next time on dagryffyn Hobby.